We have been waiting for these institutional dark pools to come alive on Canton for months now.
There,
And so
how does that impact the demand for the underlying token itself? And so I think it's really going into to be a token picking era or years ahead of us, where there's going to be a lot more divergence and winners and losers of tokens that are going to disperse a lot more than what you've seen in the past, where just all the tokens would go up at the same time.
Okay, so in light of the most recent market sell-off, I want to play some video clips from some institutional participants on stage at recent events to calm everybody's fears and market nerves of just the uncertainty that is likely lingering in the back of everybody's mind, to show you guys the perspectives from major institutional players in the space who are all still bullish across the board, at least from everything that they're saying on these panel discussions, because these are all video clips, of course, that the mainstream will never show you. And they're all hinting at this being the possible last kind of like bear market, not necessarily bear market cycle, but the last buying opportunity at these low discounted prices. So in today's video breakdown, I want to share some of those video clips, some of those insights for you all. I want to touch on some updated levels, dark pools on both Canton and XRP that we have been paying attention to for months on end now. And just give you guys an accurate update for the first portion of today's video. And then we'll roll over into the Metallicus ecosystem. I have some good information to share on that front, some things that were recently said. I want to read thoroughly through the Q2 report. We'll get to that part here in just a second. So first, I want to start off with this post here, where I said, listen to what institutions are actually discussing, not what social media is arguing about. We have Morgan Stanley and Zero Hash sitting on stage discussing how to integrate digital assets into real financial infrastructure. This gentleman here is the Zero Hash founder and CEO, Edward W., and he mentions the environment when talking to financial institutions has completely shifted. Take a second and listen.
So CEOs on a panel. It's kind of mind-blowing from when we started in 2017. I mean, you know, I won't name the bank, but there was a bank that I got uninvited from a dinner because the bank was paying for my dinner at an award ceremony. This was 3 years ago. That same bank is now in a proof of concept with Zero Hash. So it's very, very hard to really explain how quickly things have shifted and the momentum and the speed at which large financial institutions, when they want to move and they see a competitive threat and also an opportunity, are able to move.
Yeah, it kind of made me laugh that.
So that to me stood out because he said a bank that literally discredited him 3 years ago is now in a proof of concept with them testing these new technologies. If that's not a massively bullish statement, then I don't know what else is. Here we have the gentleman, Maxim Saylor from STS Digital. All of these videos, by the way, that I'm showing you guys, shout out to the CYPRX researchers, are from within the last like 2 to 3 weeks. So literally in the midst of this bearish pullback. And this is what institutional participants are saying. Here we have a gentleman, Maxime, go on to mention that we're going to have winners and losers, and that the time is coming where we're really going to see a shift from this speculative era of crypto to layer ones and certain digital assets actually performing based off of their utility that they bring to the market. Take a second and listen.
See a change, but reality is that all of these positive news that have come in haven't really moved the way capital has been deployed. And so the question really is, at what point is capital being redeployed into crypto? And when it takes place, how is it going to be redeployed? I think the previous sort of bull market where all the boats are being lifted by the capital that's flowing in, I think that era is over. I think we're now in a market where it's going to be a lot more about picking the winners and where there's going to be more dispersion between different tokens and between different chains, where there's really momentum that is taking place in terms of adoption, in terms of infrastructure that is being deployed and used within the existing financial markets. And therefore, it's really about staying on top of those trends, understanding on what chains is infrastructure being built, what chains have TVL that is growing in terms of financial assets that are being tokenized. And then from there, how does that impact the demand for the underlying token itself. And so I think it's really going into to be a token picking era or years ahead of us, where there's going to be a lot more divergence and winners and losers of tokens that are going to disperse a lot more than what you've seen in the past, where just all the tokens would go up at the same time.
So that for me is a call to action on our behalf as investors in the space to start to really consider, unmarrying old biases, start to really consider measuring different metrics in the portfolio that we have for our digital assets. Because this is obviously, of course, an institutional player sitting here saying, like, not all of crypto is going to recover from what we're seeing right now. And we're going to enter into an era where real utility, real on-chain metrics, real TVL, real tokenized assets on chain actually benefit token holders, or tokens that actually benefit token holders are going to be the ones that win in this next era of finance. All right. So just something to consider in the environment that we're in. Maybe it's time to do some restructuring in your portfolio, to dive back into research, to pick apart some other chains or networks that you otherwise left alone in the past that were speculative on, but now are doing well in terms of TVL metrics and on-chain, tokenization, so on and so forth. It's just now is the time to really start to pay attention to this stuff, considering the landscape that we're in. So I thought that I'd bring that to everybody's attention. With a quick and a brief update. This was a video all the way back from April 19th, 2026. We have been waiting for these institutional dark pools to come alive on Canton for months now. And so just playing this video clip real fast to rekindle our thought process from months ago, what would happen if we broke the 14,801 and if we broke the 13.5 cent threshold, we were likely to see as our next bearish target. So right now, 13.5 cents remains our O candle. If 13.5 cents breaks, expect lower prices. Price above 13.5 cents, buyers could defend at any one of these levels. Right? If we do break 13.5 cents, I will be looking to get into some Canton at 12,275 as my first bearish target. And of course, that 0.9453 would give us the best discounted opportunity, correcting more of this bullish extension. And so now fast forward today. Over the Asia and London session trading hours, of course, we had the whole entire debacle with Iran, the United States, and the escalation that took place with United States attacking Iran overnight. The details escape my thought process right now, so we're not going to cover that in detail, but that created a massive risk-off environment in the digital asset space during Asia and London session trading hours. Right now, the total cryptocurrency market cap is still experiencing a sell-off, down about $40 billion on the day, slightly having stabilized from Asia and London session trading hours, but no formal major recovery as of time of recording. That leads us into giving some updates on the dark pools, because now, after having waited for these levels for over April, May, June, now we're in July, almost 4 months for these levels to come into fruition, we can see the importance of being in a Discord community like this, where we're probably, honest to God, out of all the content creators out there for specific digital assets like Canton, the only ones telling people, don't buy up here in this area. It's stupid to buy up here in this area, in a sense, where we could wait for discounted prices and buy from institutional dark pools. So now, like, obviously, of course, not financial advice, is the time to buy. Right now is the time where market makers could start to really defend these lower level dark pools. I know for me personally, I had some buy limits set on Kraken and on Caleb and Brown that were executed. I had them set at roughly around 12.5 cents. They were executed overnight during the Asia and London session trading hours in this most recent sell-off. And we can see, to the almost absolute pip, given our most recent update of the 12,361, buyers are starting to absorb sell volume, and we're starting to see some profit taking from this dark pool. We're going to call it profit taking for now until buyers reclaim the dark pool above at the 13,916, and just be mindful of possible lower levels that could come into fruition. So right now on Canton, now that after 4 months of waiting, we have come into this level, given the recent update, if we can see buyers reclaim this level, get my drawing tool out, we can start to see all these bearish engulfing candles where we had previous sell volume overpower this last support here, start to act as a support, and we can see buyers reclaim and overpower sellers at this level and start to turn this intermediary level or previous support that acts as a resistance now back into support, then we can start to see a formal recovery on Canton breaking back up into the 13,916 and possibly targeting the 14,801 as two bullish hurdles that we need to overcome before we get excited on any higher prices on Canton. If we cannot start the trade firmly halfway through the dark pool from the 12,361 and the 13,916, and we start to see this area act as a resistance, then that is a case for concern. Buyers will have one last attempt to defend the 12,361, where we could start to see that defense come in and buyers push price back to the upside, creating a formal delta held setup. So right now, these are the only two bullish catalysts on Canton that I'm paying attention to see if the most recent dollar cost average levels that have been hit result in some nice gains. If we cannot see either of these two bullish scenarios unfold, then that is a case for concern. Any formal bearish break beneath the 12,361 with a nice bearish close below opens the door up for a drop down into the next dark pool at the 11,021, where I have buy limit set briefly above that at around the 11,3. Another bearish scenario would be if buyers do make a formal attempt to engulf the sell volume and we do not see sellers trapped above the 13,916, and instead we see the seller here that passively defended this area, trapping buyers, then becoming aggressive and pushing price lower, throw up a passive defense again, and commit to the same formal price action, where we see a high taken, a new low made, a retest of the dark pool, and that could open up the door for a drop back down into either the 12,361 or into lower territory at the 11,021 as our next bearish target to the downside. So for now, before we get excited on any formal recovery on Canton's price action, we need to at least break up above halfway through these dark pools, which would put us at around 13 cents. If we can turn 13 cents into support, then we can get excited. Maybe I'll do 13 and a half cents, 13 and a quarter. If we can turn 13 and a quarter cent into support, then we can start to assume a formal recovery on Canton is set to unfold. Until that happens, I would be wary and cautious of possible further downside. Obviously, of course, to the upside, we still have targets sitting at around 19 to 29 cents for sell side targets, where sell dark pools rest for some good profit taking on Canton if the buyers do overcome sellers and we start to push price back up into these sell dark pool territories. I'm sure we'll have another update before that comes into fruition, but just so that way you have them on your radar, anywhere between 19 and 29 cents are where we're going to start to look to profit take on Canton, especially if we see some nice gains from these lower level dark pools. As for XRP, probably one of the most accurate dark pool pairs that we cover in this community. We had a phenomenal sell-off from the $1.18 threshold, where in our previous analysis update, we mentioned that we could still see the seller that exists in this area that was aggressive enough to push through the dark pool, trap buyers underneath the 50 EMA, defend the dark pool at $1.18, would likely put up some formal defense, which they did. That coexisted with the risk-off environment over Asia and London session trading hours. And we see price has now traded back down into the dark pool at the $0.07943 to the absolute pip. So with that being said, we are currently operating in this bullish range where we have broken this previous bearish structure. So as long as price is trading above these lows, I'm still bullish on XRP. I have hope that we could see buyers defend at these levels and start to create another structure leg to the upside. So the bullish scenarios on XRP will be one last drop down into the space for buyers to defend their previous positions, creating an overall delta held, and taking price back to the upside. A formal break above $1.18 would solidify this bullish move. A retest of $1.18 would open the door for possible higher prices of anywhere between $1.29 to $1.36 as our next targets to the upside. If we do not see a drop down into the base and we hold above $1.07, a formal break above $1.11, retesting that, turning it into support, a break above $1.18, turning that into support, would again open the door for higher prices on XRP. If we do not get either of these two bullish scenarios, then again, caution is warranted. A sustainable break and hold below $1.07, which has not happened yet. You can see buyers are formally attempting to absorb some of the sell volume for now. But if we see sellers engulf the buy volume over here to the left-hand side, retest the $1.07 threshold, that is going to open up the door for a potential buy squeeze underneath the stop losses that exist underneath these lows, which could, of course, open up the door for a much deeper fall on XRP down into the next dark pool at around 91 cents. As someone who's bought most of my XRP, at least the vast majority over the lifeline that I've been investing in XRP, well underneath of 27 cents, I'm personally counting on 91 cents to come into fruition for XRP's price to actually be discounted enough for me to start to buy a substantial amount. So I'm keeping my eye on this potential move. I have an alarm set right at the bottom of the space at about $1.02 in case that happens. And I have some buy limits set at around 91.5 to 92 cents on different exchanges and brokers, just in case. Another scenario, we could obviously, of course, see a play in this range from $1.18 to $1.07. If we do not see buyers make a formal attempt to break above $1.18, if we come back up into the top of this range and we see sellers over here to the left-hand side defend, we could still see a sell-off if we do not break bullish above $1.18. What would invalidate these two bearish plays is if we turn $1.18 into support. So as long as we are under $1.18, that leaves the door open for a nice drop down into a 91 cent threshold. If at any point in time we break back above $1.18, turn it into support, I would go outright and say that buyers are back in control and we can start to expect them to target higher levels.